Good afternoon. How are you? Well, I hope you're doing well. It's a chilly day, even though it's 56. How do you figure it? It was only a few days ago we had warmth and sunshine. And it's interesting that although I couldn't feel more than a brush of a breeze, that I could see the trees moving back and forth in a kind of dance of the wind. And so that I could see the wind and the manifestation of its effect. It's sort of like we see the manifestation of Trump, the hate and chaos he creates on a daily basis. And often we can identify him as that swaying tree creating the chaos. But finally there came pushback. So last evening I found victory. It was a day for victory laps. It was because of the straight talk with vigor, an extemporaneous response to crazed Congresswoman Green, to the perfidy that has been the Republican platform for some time, to the crimes of the last resident of the West Wing before Biden. It was a powerhouse. It was what the country needed. Everybody who saw it has said so. And it's interesting because I watch, as probably you do, how a person decides to speak about a subject. What natural gifts do they have? What tools do they use? What is the content? And so forth. And by any of those standards, Biden gave the best speech of his political life. And I've heard him for some time, and some people say he's not a good speaker. And in recent years, I think he simplified his speaking to really two modes, and I've said this before. One is shouting and one is whispering. But last night, he added different intonations, different emotion to it. And the way I consider it as a fella who has been involved in elective office and helped others do it and listened to them and observed them, you can't get a candidate to want to win. They have to want it, and he did, and you could feel it, and you could feel it fill the room, and you could see he was having fun, professional, responsible fun, laying out the arguments like he was unleashed to be candid about the dimensions of the challenge to Americans, to the nation, to the democracy, to the republic, and how he hoped to go forward, and how he wanted to be involved in a adventure in democracy for all the people. And he said he was opening it up for the dreams he had, obviously evoking Martin Luther King, for the dreams he had for our democracy, our young democracy. He pronounced himself, as some of us believed he already was, a leader for the nation, to build it up, not run it down, to care, not to threaten, and to invite his indifference even to join in Biden's efforts to make this a better, more accessible, more uniformly relevant government. And he spoke not just about what was happening here at home, but also about what was happening abroad. And he was caught on a hot mic that he didn't realize was hot when he was talking to someone. And he said, ironically, and you'll see why, he's talking to Netanyahu, and he said he spoke to the Israeli leader, and he said, we'll have to come to Jesus meeting, which is a strange thing to say if you analyze it when you're talking to the leader of Israel. But if you're talking about the president originally from Scranton, then you'd understand how that comes about. Now, what else is going on? Well, D.A. Willis and Judge McAfee are actually up for election this year. So there's not only the judgment of how they're doing in the courtroom by the participants in the Trump case, but there's also a question what the voters think, because they're going to get to say so in November. That's kind of an interesting twist, don't you think? And Trump has posted $91 million bond so that he can seek to appeal the ruling in the Carroll case. Now, that's not over because there may be objections to the source of funds. But if not, it would probably mean that he had raised probably a tenth of what he posted. So he probably found cash for $9 million and got someone to issue a bond that said they would pay the full amount if it became necessary. So the court's going to want to examine that. It sounds like there was an entity created, the FIC, which is the signatory to the bond, as well as Trump. So we'll be looking at that. And then we have to wonder about our borders. We know this is going to be a continuing fight in the election. And it's interesting because they've considered how many migrants actually drowned because of Trump's border wall. And I think one way to look at that is turn it around and to say maybe we should metaphorically drown him politically. And we should do that at the ballot box, but we should also, in our other departments, do it in the courtrooms, do it in the commissions, do it in the agencies, do it in how we cover who he is and what he does as a threat to the nation. Last night I had an unenviable assignment, but one that we do. I mean, we know that these things happen. A man I'd known, for a very long time. Let's see, at least 1983. I ran for Congress in 1984. And his name was Raleigh Winter. And Raleigh and I were similar and different. And but we were very strong Democrats. And a few weeks ago he died. And he's older than I am. He was 82 at the time of his death. And I'm not sure, but I do know that he had heart problems. And he cared deeply about the political process. And he is an example of one of many of those people who believe in the idea of America. That is, that they work in their mind and they use it. But they also realize that something within the cerebellum or wherever such notions are negotiated don't mean that much unless it causes action. And in Raleigh's lifetime, he was involved in a one-man, one-vote decision in Southside, Virginia in 1970s. And he's worked for all sorts of candidates, including myself when I ran for office for Congress in 1984. And he was the kind of guy, when they were considering me for chairman of the committee, he wore to that meeting for the vote one of my campaign buttons. And at another time, he was chairman of the Loudoun County Democratic Committee. And at another time, I was his vice chair, his second in command, to try to bring together our values in a way to attract perhaps more people to our committee. And we were growing then. It was a quick kick last night to ask who knew Raleigh, and almost all the hands went up, even though he's been active, as far as I can tell, the last couple of years. And so I posted some partial pictures of us from past appearances together. But I thought, and I believe it, that this is the blood of political organizations. People who care, who think, who believe it should involve action and it should involve results. And because of that, he made a difference in life, and that's who Raleigh was. He was a responsible man, a man who would always tell the truth. He was an elector, honestly elected to represent Obama when the votes were cast in Virginia, when Obama ran for president the first time. And he was a man who was quiet but spoke when necessary. He was a man who listened to others. He was a man who loved to follow the rules and to understand them. He was a parliamentarian. He was an engineer by study, and that was his principal occupation. He did a lot of coding in his life. But his true love, his first love, was politics. My grandfather was like him. I was too young to know him with the dimensions that I know of Raleigh, but there's a similar kind of person, man or woman, a cause that catches their attention, a sufferance that they have. Last night, one of the people who spoke was a vet, and he spoke about how he suffered in a society that didn't care enough, what the government didn't do enough. Another person who spoke was a criminal defense lawyer, that if elected to Congress, he would make a difference in that direction. That's what good politics is about. People wanting to make a difference. People buying into the several dreams of our current president, Joe Biden, who hopes to bring us to these better places, rather than the scourge of Trump, who only wants to hurt, displace, discriminate, and take as a prize the oath and the presidency for its power, not for its idea as a place where all men are equal, where every man has an equal vote, every man or woman has an equal vote. And so day by day, we see, and I'm getting responses on Twitter and elsewhere where people are agreeing to write postcards to get people to vote. My partner has a notion of the 20 committees. Each person on the committee says they will get 20 people to go out and to vote for Biden. Imagine your own way, however small, that you can be an influence in the next election. And if you're in the battleground state, you're even more important. And if you're not in the battleground state and can send funds to those local committees, that would be great to do that. So that's all I got today. Good to talk to you on my Cathedral of Trees. Look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.